I'm just a regular college student, living alone in a cramped apartment. Life's a grind, and the little joys keep me going. When Pokémon Heart Gold and Soul Silver finally released in the States, I was ecstatic. I'd been avoiding spoilers like the plague, no forums, no walkthroughs, nothing. School and being broke kept me from grabbing a copy on launch day, but as soon as the semester ended, I ordered Soul Silver on Amazon. 1 week. That's all I had to wait. To kill time, I decided to replay my old Pokémon Crystal on my Game Boy Color. That nostalgia hit was just what I needed. But when I went to grab it, I remembered something that made my stomach sink. My mom had thrown it out years ago. She thought it was useless after the save battery died. Along with it went my silver version. All I had left was my dusty old Game Boy Color, mocking me. Determined, I hit up a local GameStop. Luck was on my side, or so I thought. They had one last used copy of Silver, cheap too. I bought it, eager to relive those childhood memories. That's when things started getting off. I popped the cartridge in, and the familiar Game Freak logo appeared, but it froze. I frowned, tapping the buttons. Maybe the cartridge was busted? I reset the Game Boy, and this time the logo flickered before vanishing into a black screen. 5 seconds of silence. Then, without warning, I was dropped into the game. No title screen. Just a saved file already loaded up. Weird. Weren't these old saves supposed to get wiped when the battery died? Curiosity got the better of me. I checked the save file. The trainer's name was just 3 dots. It felt unsettling. I dug deeper. The trainer had maxed out everything. 999 hours played, all 16 badges, 99,999 Poke Dollars, and a complete Pokédex. Even New and Celebi were logged. Something wasn't right. I opened the Pokémon menu, expecting a powerhouse team. Instead, there were 5 unknown, a 6th Pokémon named Hurry. My breath caught. The unknown spelled out a single word. The 6th Pokémon? A Cyndaquil. Level 5. Only 1 HP left. Its moves were Leer and Flash. The worst part? It was silent. No cries, no background music, just an oppressive, eerie silence. I turned the volume up to max, but it didn't matter. The game refused to make a sound. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. Something about that name Hurry sent a chill down my spine. I wanted to turn the game off, but I couldn't. It was like the screen had me under a spell. I decided to walk around. The overworld was wrong. The colors were washed out, like the life had been drained from the game. My trainer stood in a dark, empty version of New Bark Town. No NPCs, no music. Just the sound of my footsteps, echoing like they were in a cavern. I opened the menu again, desperate to save and quit. But the save option was gone. All that remained was leave. My stomach twisted. I stepped into the tall grass, hoping for a wild encounter to break the tension. Instead, the screen flashed and a single message appeared. Hurry. The screen cut to black. I shut the game off, heart pounding. But something compelled me to start it again. When the screen flickered back to life, I found myself in a room that vaguely resembled the Bellsprout Tower. Only, it wasn't right. The usual NPCs were gone. The iconic swaying pillar in the center stood eerily still, leaning unnaturally to one side. There was no music, just silence. The exits and ladders were missing, or so I thought. I wandered aimlessly for what felt like an eternity, the oppressive quiet gnawing at my nerves. The room wasn't like anything I remembered from Bellsprout Tower. I opened my bag, hoping to find an escape rope, but it was empty. Completely empty. Not even a potion or berry. There were no wild Pokémon either, just the suffocating void of the room. Eventually, I stumbled across a ladder hidden behind the pillar. Relief washed over me as I climbed down. But as the screen turned black, my stomach dropped. The silence was broken by a haunting melody, the same one that plays on the radio in the ruins of Ulf. That eerie, otherworldly tune. When the screen reappeared, I realized I wasn't transitioning to another floor. I was in total darkness. The kind where you can't even see your character. I needed flash. My hands trembled as I opened my poke gear, hoping to change the radio to something less disturbing. But the radio card was gone. So was the phone card and the time card. All that remained was the map, showing, wandering aimlessly in the void. Desperate, I turned off the poke gear and selected Flash from Cyndaquil's moveset. But instead of the usual message, Hurry used Flash. The room simply lit up, without any fanfare. And I immediately regretted it. The room was bathed in a sickly blood-red glow. A single narrow gray path stretched south, disappearing into the darkness. The ladder I had climbed was gone. I had no choice but to move forward. Every 20 steps, the screen grew darker, as if the game itself was trying to suffocate me in shadow. My breathing quickened as I approached the end of the path. There, standing ominously, was a lone sign. I clicked it, and the message chilled me to my core. Turn back now. Then, without warning, a yes or no prompt appeared. But there was no question, no context, just the two options. My thumb hesitated, hovering over the buttons. Finally, I chose yes. The screen went black again. A ladder climbing sound echoed through the void, followed by silence. Then, the unsettling ruins of Alf melody was replaced by the poke flute radio tune, a sound that should have been comforting, but in this moment, felt wrong, mocking. When the screen reappeared, I was back in the dark. I quickly used Flash again, only for the game to freeze for a moment. Then, a message appeared. Hurry has fainted. My blood ran cold. I hadn't been in a battle. There was no poison or status effect. I checked my party in a panic. Hurry was gone. All my Pokémon were gone. In their place were 6 unknown, each at level 10. I inspected them, desperate for answers. They spelled out a message. He died. I sat frozen, staring at the screen. My hands were clammy, my heartbeat thundering in my ears. The room lit up once more, revealing a tiny, claustrophobic space, no more than 4 squares wide. The walls were constructed of massive gray bricks like I was entombed in some hollowed-out structure. Beyond the walls, I could see rows upon rows of graves, eerily similar to the ones in Pokémon Tower from Red and Blue. I moved around the tiny room, pressing every button, hoping for anything to happen, but nothing did. I was trapped. I'd already concluded this game was hacks and twisted creation sold off to GameStop by a sadistic prankster. But I couldn't stop. Curiosity had its claws in me. I opened the trainer profile again, hoping to make sense of the madness. This time, Gold's sprite was altered, his arms were gone, and his once confident expression had morphed into something deeply unsettling. His face looked hollow, as though he'd been drained of life. There was a sadness in his eyes that I couldn't put into words, but the detail that chilled me the most? It now said he had 24 badges. That was impossible. I wandered aimlessly, unsure of what to do. Then, without warning, my character spun in place, performing the escape rope animation. But instead of ascending, Gold spiraled downward, sinking slowly, unnaturally, into the void. The music cut out. When the screen reloaded, I froze. Gold's overworld sprite was now completely white, his clothes, his skin, everything. He looked like a ghost, ripped straight out of the monochrome Game Boy era and dropped into the colored world of the Game Boy Color. I checked his profile again, dreading what I might find. His sprite had changed further. Now not only was he missing his arms, but his legs were gone too. Bloody streaks trailed from his eyes like tears. The badge count had climbed again, 32 badges. My pulse quickened. What did that number mean? I opened the Pokémon menu, praying for something familiar. What greeted me was worse than before. My team consisted of 5 unknown and a single Celebi. The unknown were level 15, spelling out a word that made my blood run cold. Dying. Then I checked Celebi. It was shiny, but not in the way that made you excited. Its sprite was incomplete, with only half of its body visible. One arm, one leg, one eye. Its only move? Perish Song. The overworld had changed too. I was still in what looked like Bellsprout Tower, but everything was drenched in a sickly, pulsating red. The immobile pillar loomed ominously in the center, like a lifeless monument. I walked north, compelled by some unseen force. The journey felt endless, the red haze growing heavier with every step. Eventually, I saw them rows of NPCs, men and women, generic sprites, lined up along the pillar. They were all pure white, like gold, and they stood frozen, staring blankly ahead. I tried to talk to them, but nothing happened. They were lifeless. I pressed on, the silence gnawing at my sanity. After what felt like an eternity, I reached the end of the path. The pillar was severed, its top half missing, leaving behind a jagged, transparent red void. And then I saw him. Red. I didn't even press a button. The game forced me into a battle. The music returned, but it was warped like the unknown radio theme, only played backward and distorted. My breath hitched as I saw my trainer's battle sprite. It matched his overworld form, white, armless, legless, with blood streaking down his hollow eyes. Red's sprite appeared too, but it was different. It was transparent, as if he wasn't fully there. The text didn't say Red wants to battle. It simply read, wants to battle, no name, no identity, just a void. The battle began. Both of us had only one Pokémon. My Celebi came out first. Its back sprite mirrored its front half a body, flickering like a glitch. The shiny animation played, but the sound was wrong. Instead of the usual sparkle, it was a series of overlapping screeches, piercing and grating. Then Red sent out his Pokémon. It was a Pikachu. But not the cheerful, iconic Pikachu I remembered. This one was level 255. Its sprite looked wrong. Its ears drooped. Its body sagged as if crushed under invisible weight. And its eyes were filled with tears. I stared at the screen, unable to move. My fingers hovered over the buttons, but I felt paralyzed, as though the game had taken control of me. I didn't know what was coming next, but I knew it wouldn't be good. And I couldn't stop. Instead of the usual fight, item, Pokémon, run menu, I was presented with only one option, attack. My Celebi had just one move, Perish Song, so I selected it, though I knew it wouldn't matter. Pikachu, at level 255, moved first. It used Curse. The screen flickered as its stats shifted, lowering its speed, but boosting its attack and defense. I hesitated. Could Pikachu even learn Curse? Celebi followed with Perish Song, and the haunting melody began to count down the inevitable doom for both Pokémon. But the battle didn't proceed like normal. There were no animations, no sound effects. It was as if the game was watching me. Pikachu attacked again, this time with Flail. Despite its overwhelming level and boosted stats, the attack barely scratched Celebi. Something felt wrong, like the game was toying with me. Celebi repeated Perish Song, though it was already in effect. Nothing happened. Then Pikachu used frustration. The screen glitched slightly as the attack landed. It hit hard, leaving Celebi with a sliver of health, barely clinging on. My heart raced, but I couldn't look away. Then Celebi did something unexpected. It used Pain Split. I froze. Celebi didn't even know that move. The screen darkened momentarily as both Pokemon's health adjusted to roughly equal levels. Pikachu retaliated with Mean Look. The move had no purpose here, yet its use felt deliberate, as if it was locking me into something far worse. The countdown ended. Celebi fainted, or so I thought. The text on the screen didn't say Celebi fainted. Instead, it read, Celebi has died. My blood ran cold. There was no fainting animation. Celebi's back sprite simply vanished, erased as though it had never existed. Pikachu remained on the field, untouched by the effects of Perish Song. Then it used a move outside the bounds of the game itself. Destiny Bond. The screen flashed red. The text read, "Pikachu has died." Its sprite dissolved slowly, unnervingly, fading out like a specter. The battle ended abruptly, but the sense of dread lingered. The screen faded back to the overworld. Gold's sprite had changed again. He was now as transparent as Red's had been during the battle. His movements were sluggish, unnatural, as if he were being dragged through the game world by some unseen force. I opened his profile, and what I saw made me recoil. Gold was now nothing but a head. A transparent, disembodied head zoomed in unnervingly close. His eyes were empty voids, staring out from a blank, expressionless face. The badge count had climbed again 40 badges. The meaning behind this grotesque tally gnawed at me, but I couldn't dwell on it for long. I checked my Pokémon. My team had been replaced yet again. This time, it consisted of 6 shiny Unown, all level 20. Together, they spelled out a single ominous message: nitrogen monoxide more. I was back in the overworld, standing in New Barktown. The silence was deafening. No music, no sound, just an oppressive stillness that seemed to press down on me. For a fleeting moment, I thought I might finally be able to play the game normally. But deep down, I knew better. This game was a trap, a nightmare I couldn't escape. I explored Gold's house cautiously. The background moved as usual, but Gold's sprite didn't. He didn't walk, he floated, his limbs hanging lifelessly like the ghosts in Diamond and Pearl. His disjointed movement made my skin crawl. I interacted with everything in the room, desperate for some semblance of normalcy. The radio? Dead. The computer? Unresponsive. The TV? A blank screen. My options were dwindling. I didn't want to go downstairs. I didn't want to see what was waiting for me. But I had no choice. With a deep breath, I descended into the unknown. I found myself back in the lower level of Gold's house. Everything appeared normal at first, but something was off. Mom wasn't home. The silence felt suffocating, like the house itself was holding its breath. I tried interacting with everything, the table, the TV, even the plants, but nothing responded. It was as if the world had gone dead. Left with no other option, I moved toward the door to step outside. But instead of opening, the door allowed me to walk straight through it, as though it wasn't there. The world beyond was wrong. My house vanished behind me, swallowed by the void as I stepped into an endless black expanse. As I moved south, the void seemed to shift around me. Gold's sprite flickered, its outline turned stark white against the pitch-black backdrop. It felt like the void was consuming him, erasing him piece by piece. Then, I reached a strange white area. Here, Gold's sprite changed again, becoming completely black, then transparent. He looked like a ghost, a shadow of what he once was. I kept moving south. I didn't know why, but I couldn't stop. My hands felt glued to the controls, compelled to continue the endless trek. The darkness stretched on forever, oppressive and silent. Then finally, I saw something. It was Gold's regular sprite, standing motionless in the void. Relief and dread washed over me in equal measure. I approached it, desperate for answers, and pressed it. The sprite spoke, "Goodbye, forever." And then, it vanished. Before I could process what had happened, the screen flickered. A message appeared. "Use nightmare." My heart sank. The words felt more like a curse than a Pokémon move. Gold's sprite began to spin, performing the escape rope animation. But this time, he wasn't escaping, he was sinking. Slowly, unnervingly, he spiraled downward, disappearing into the abyss. When the screen faded back in, I was in that small, hollowed-out room again, surrounded by graves. Or at least, I thought I was. Gold's sprite was gone. I tried moving, but nothing happened. No footsteps, no bumping into walls, just an oppressive stillness. It was as if I had become part of the game's lifeless scenery. I opened the trainer profile. There was no gold sprite anymore. The screen displayed nothing but empty space where he should have been. The badge count had dropped to 0, and the images of the Johto gym leaders were replaced by skulls. Their hollow eyes stared back at me, accusing and cold. Desperate, I checked my Pokémon. My team was gone, replaced by 6 level 25 Unown. They spelled out a phrase I dreaded to read: "I'm dead." The overworld reappeared, but the room had changed. The walls were now solid, blocking every possible exit. The realization hit me like a punch to the chest. This wasn't just a room, it was a grave. My grave, Gold's grave. The final message appeared on the screen: R.I.P. I sat frozen, staring at the words as they lingered on the screen. It all became clear. Gold had been dead all along. This twisted journey wasn't a story of triumph or adventure, it was a requiem. Gold, a once promising young trainer who had collected countless badges and battled Red at the summit, had succumbed to the inescapable grip of death. His achievements, his struggles, his dreams, they were all forgotten by the next generation. He was just another name, lost to time. The screen refused to move past the RIP message. No buttons worked. I tried resetting the game, but every time, it brought me back to the same grim conclusion. Gold was gone, and there was no escape. I finally gave up, shutting the game off for good. But the experience stayed with me. I couldn't stop thinking about it, the eerie void, the Unown's cryptic messages, the lifeless sprites. I would never look at Unown the same way again. They say the first generation of Pokémon was filled with folklore and legends. But this hacked game from the second generation taught me something far more unsettling. The truth can be far worse. Though I eventually enjoyed Soul Silver, the memory of that rigged game lingered. No matter how much time passes, I'll never forget the chilling story it told me, or the haunting realization that came with it.